Just let her go, let her come home to her family. She has so many people who love her. She has a 3-year-old child that is missing his mother, and we would just like him to let her go.
On the night of April, Jessica Heeringa, a 25-year-old mother, disappeared from her late-night shift at an Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, Michigan. Her sudden vanishing left behind only an unsettlingly neat scene: cigarettes, a lighter, and money left untouched on the counter. Despite widespread searches and hundreds of tips, the investigation into her disappearance hit dead ends, and Jessica's fate seemed to slip further out of reach. Let's get into the troubling details of the Jessica Heeringa case.
You firmly believe, and your family firmly believes, that she's alive?
Yes. Shelley and her other 2 daughters, of course Jesse's sisters, and myself, we strongly believe that if she was deceased.
On the night of April 26th, 2013, Jessica Heeringa was working the late shift at the Exxon gas station on East Sternberg Road in Norton Shores, Michigan. As a single mother to a 3-year-old boy, Jessica had grown accustomed to working alone during the late hours, a routine she had managed countless times before.
I know.
He also knows this much about what happened to his mom.
My mom at somewhere.
She's somewhere.
What did you say? Your mom is at somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, we can't find her.
At around 10:30 p.m., she was last seen by a customer who described her as going about her usual tasks without any sign of distress. However, by 11 p.m., she had mysteriously vanished and left the gas station empty and the lights dimmed. When morning broke, Jessica's disappearance quickly sent shockwaves through the small town. Her family, frantic with worry, immediately began searching for answers, but there was nothing to suggest where she had gone. The station's security footage revealed no evidence of a struggle, but it was clear that she had simply disappeared into the night.
I think if cameras or a second employee would have been in place, I think Jessie would still be here today. And also, cameras would have helped with the investigation if it actually did happen.
When police arrived at the Exxon station on the morning of April 27th, they were greeted by a scene that was perplexing. The interior of the gas station appeared to be untouched, almost as if Jessica had stepped away for a moment and would return any minute. Her cigarettes, lighter, and a small stack of money were neatly left on the counter, and the register remained undisturbed. Everything inside suggested an ordinary end to a night shift, yet something was terribly wrong. There were no signs of a struggle, no broken items or overturned displays, which made it difficult to determine what had happened.
It is, and unfortunately, though, it's not enough evidence yet to give us an exact clue as to where she might be right now. And of course, that's the frantic search, but the latest development, it is news, and that's a good thing when it comes to trying to find a missing woman.
However, the first signs of foul play began to emerge outside. A motorcycle rider had passed by the station earlier that night and recalled seeing a silver minivan parked behind the building. While the sighting could have been a random detail, it raised enough suspicion to warrant further investigation. Even more troubling was the discovery of a bloodstain just outside the station, which investigators believed might belong to Jessica. Nearby, they found the cover to a laser sight, likely from a firearm, which suggested that violence might have played a role in her disappearance. With these disturbing clues in hand, the police began to form a troubling theory that Jessica had been abducted. Yet, without concrete evidence, they were left with more questions than answers, and the mystery surrounding her disappearance only deepened.
It does give us some hope that we've got some accurate information out there to work with.
Management at the bar tells us that the timestamp on the video is off by several minutes, but police say the van is seen driving by the old Homestead bar.
In the days following Jessica's disappearance, the town of Norton Shores was shaken to its core. A massive search effort was swiftly organized, with both local law enforcement and volunteers searching every inch of the area in a desperate attempt to find answers. They combed through wooded areas, fields, and nearby roads, hoping for any sign of Jessica. Despite the overwhelming response from the community, no tangible evidence surfaced. Tips poured in from all over, yet none seemed to lead anywhere, which left investigators frustrated and exhausted.
Well, we're going to continue to track down all the leads that we're receiving. We have a priority system in which we're tracking down known persons on the sex offender list, those who have a silver van, and sooner or later we will get that one tip to find her.
Detective Michael Kasher, who had taken the lead in the investigation, was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. As he meticulously examined the gas station where Jessica had been working that fateful night, Kasher couldn't shake the feeling that her disappearance was far from a random event. The gas station was left undisturbed, with no signs of a robbery or struggle inside. The orderly state of the station, combined with bloodstains found outside, suggested a different story. Someone had targeted Jessica, and Kasher was determined to find out who.
When she was last seen, I feel for the family, I really do. I'm not in their spot, so I'm trying to look at it, and during the investigation, that's kind of the hope that you rode on.
The investigation intensified as Kasher's team pursued numerous leads. They briefly focused on Jessica's live-in boyfriend, the father of her young son. But after confirming his alibi, he was ruled out as a suspect. With no clear suspects or motive, the case grew colder by the day. Yet, despite the overwhelming silence, the community held on to hope, refusing to let Jessica's story fade into the shadows.
In whatever direction it took them. I can't thank enough the dedication and the work that all these individuals behind me put in as it relates to the further investigation, in particular as it relates to Jessica Heeringa.
Almost 3 years after Jessica's disappearance, a breakthrough finally emerged, but it was one that no one could have predicted. In April 2016, a 16-year-old girl escaped from a man who had abducted her in his silver minivan. The man had threatened her with a gun, and in a desperate move, she jumped from the moving vehicle. The girl quickly reported the frightening incident to the authorities. They acted swiftly, connecting the description of the minivan to Jeffrey Willis, a local man who had been under investigation for years but had never been officially linked to the case.
Well, Brian and Marley, I just got done speaking with the law enforcement source. They tell me there is no doubt in their mind that Jeffrey Willis abducted Jessica Heeringa.
Willis, a 49-year-old resident of Norton Shores, had a history that had raised numerous red flags. While he had been investigated for an unrelated crime in the past, it wasn't until the girl's escape that investigators began to see a disturbing pattern. The silver minivan he was driving matched the vehicle seen near the gas station where Jessica had vanished in 2013.
Today, it's another small piece to a puzzle investigators are struggling to complete. Who's driving the van seen here? And what do they know about what happened to Jessica Heeringa? The picture is a bit clearer, shows the van heading north on Grand Haven Road.
This crucial detail prompted investigators to look closer into Willis's life, and they soon realized that he was tied to more than one unsettling event. The more they looked closer, the more troubling it became. With the girl's testimony and the connection to Jessica's case, a long overdue investigation into Willis had begun.
And that's when he reached for the gun and pointed it at me.
The 16-year-old described the gun being pulled from a basket-type holder that matched pictures of a netted basket found in Willis's car. When he didn't stop, the 16-year-old jumped.
As investigators dug deeper into Jeffrey Willis's life, a pattern began to emerge. The man who had once seemed like an ordinary member of the community was now tied to several disturbing crimes. His criminal history, including the 2014 murder of Rebecca Bletch, began to surface, and it soon became clear that Willis was not just an ordinary criminal, he was a predator, Willis had been a former Herman Miller employee, a man with a seemingly quiet life. But behind closed doors, he had a disturbing collection of dark materials. Investigators discovered videos on his computer depicting abductions, torture, and murder. Horrifying material that showed a clear pattern of violent fantasies. Among the files, investigators found evidence linking him to Jessica Heeringa's case. One of the folders was labeled with Jessica's initials and the date of her presumed death: J4L27H13.
Right now, I'm still working to learn more about Jessica Heeringa's folder, what was inside there. Once I learn those details, I'll pass them along to you. And another new exclusive development that Wood TV8 has uncovered through the Freedom of Information Act, Michigan State Police records show.
Detective Kasher, who had been investigating Jessica's disappearance since day one, quickly zeroed in on Willis as the primary suspect. There were chilling pieces of evidence that seemed to suggest that Willis had not only abducted Jessica, but had also killed her.
I think, when you're looking from the victim's point of view, if she was alive or, been injured, yes, then the focus is all, get the person. And the focus is always get the person and how it happened, what happened, and then who did it.
Ballistics tests tied a stolen gun to the 2014 murder of Rebecca Bletch, a woman who had been shot and killed while jogging. The same gun was believed to have been used in Jessica's abduction.
In a small little Sentry-safe lockbox underneath the driver's seat of the van.
No, absolutely not.
Did you provide that to the defendant in order for him to store it then?
No, absolutely not.
Kasher's team uncovered a bizarre detail, which was a rape kit containing disturbing items such as restraints, sex toys, and a broken laser sight believed to be linked to the same gun used in both murders. But it was the computer files, containing explicit images of torture and the initials of both Bletch and Heeringa, that confirmed the unthinkable. Jeffrey Willis had a pattern, and Jessica Heeringa was one of his victims.
His appointed lawyer argued on his behalf. The lawyer argued that the character evidence used in the Heeringa case was not appropriate, and information about Willis's personal life, videos on his computer, and the previous crimes were not relevant to this case. Willis's lawyer also argued.
Despite the mounting evidence against him, Jeffrey Willis continued to deny any involvement in the disappearance and death of Jessica Heeringa. He remained adamant about his innocence, claiming that he was being framed by corrupt police officers with a vendetta against him. However, the evidence presented against him was undeniable. Phone records placed Willis near the area where Jessica's body was believed to have been discarded in Manistee National Forest, about a 90-minute drive from Norton Shores. This alone pointed to his involvement in the crime.
They were out searching on a wood line along an open field on Beatty Road in Muskegon County. Officers confirmed they were searching in connection to the Heeringa case, though they would not say what led them here.
Detective Michael Kasher developed a theory based on the evidence at hand. He believed that after abducting Jessica, Willis drove her to a remote location, possibly near his deceased grandfather's home in Baldwin, Michigan. Kasher's suspicions were supported by phone records, which revealed that Willis had returned to the area multiple times in the months following Jessica's disappearance. These visits took place at peculiar hours around 3 a.m., which coincided with the times that police had been conducting searches in the vicinity. This raised further questions about Willis's intentions during these visits. Despite several intense searches in the dense Manistee National Forest, authorities never found Jessica's body. The land seemed to have swallowed her, offering no clues as to her final resting place. Search teams, equipped with helicopters, cadaver dogs, and infrared cameras, scoured the forest tirelessly. Yet no trace of Jessica could be found. Detective Kasher believed that Willis had buried her in a remote part of the woods, where the challenging and uneven terrain made it nearly impossible for searchers to uncover any evidence. With no body and no definitive proof, the case stayed unclear, leaving behind a heartbreaking emptiness.
Tell us about how important it is to get out there and get some answers.
It's extremely important. I mean, we're already behind the 8 ball, if you will, with this investigation due to the lack of physical evidence. So right now we are counting on witnesses coming forward.
As investigators zeroed in on Jeffrey Willis, they revealed a piece of testimony from his cousin, Kevin Bloom, which added a disturbing layer to the case. Bloom, a former state prison guard, claimed to have been at Willis's home in Norton Shores shortly after Jessica's disappearance. During that visit, Bloom said Willis showed him a woman's body lying face down in the basement. The woman appeared to have suffered a fatal head wound, and her body was bound and completely naked. According to Bloom, Willis confided that he had tortured the woman before taking her life.
What else told you that she was dead? Just her color. Describe it for me. You don't ever want to see something like this.
He offers substantial detail.
Bloom went on to say that he had assisted Willis in disposing of the body, transporting it to a hole near some railroad tracks. However, Bloom later withdrawn his testimony, alleging that investigators had coerced him into making the statement. Despite his recantation, law enforcement officials remained convinced that Bloom's account had been truthful. The details he provided seemed too specific to ignore, and they corroborated the evidence that pointed toward Willis. Yet, even with this potentially crucial testimony, Jessica's body remained mystery, frustrating authorities and prolonging the search for her.
Bloom also told police that Willis had invited him to Willis's late grandfather's home on Bailey Street in Norton Shores, that he would have women there. When Bloom got there, Jessica was face down in the basement, unclothed, dead.
In the face of mounting evidence, Willis continued to deny any involvement in Jessica's disappearance or death. When directly questioned about why he wouldn't assist in locating her body, he coldly replied, "I'm not even going to answer that." His refusal to provide any answers only deepened the anguish for Jessica's family, who were left to cope with the ever-growing uncertainty and pain of not knowing where their loved one lay. The unanswered questions would haunt them, while the case remained tragically open.
Yeah, several times. Okay, when was the first? Back in June of this year, 2016. I was taken out of my cell. I brought up to exercise.
Despite the overwhelming evidence against Jeffrey Willis, the Heeringa family continued to hold out hope. Jessica's mother and sister refused to believe that she was truly gone. They kept a Help Find Jessica Heeringa Facebook page active despite the lack of any new leads.
Now, a Facebook page has been created to help. You can look for it under Find Jessica Heeringa. Live in Norton Shores, Ken Colker, 24-Hour News 8.
Her sister, named Samantha, clung to the possibility that Jessica was still out there somewhere, alive. So the detective Kasha is now retired and working at Hope College, still thinks about Jessica's case every day. He felt that part of his mission had been fulfilled when they arrested Willis, but the other half, finding Jessica's body, was still an open wound. As time passed, the case faded from the public's eye, but for Kasha, the mystery of what happened to Jessica Heeringa never fully left him. He could not forget the young mother and the brutal, unsolved crime that had taken her life.